this reel is starting to make a bit of a noise. Would I use it again? No. Oh, bastard. Yes! There we go, see it's 6. And there we go, fish number 2. We are back out with my wish.com bundle. Now if you haven't seen part 1, please go back and watch it, because in that one I go through every single item I bought from wish.com, which totaled £88.64 I think it was. But I broke down the price of every single item and my first impressions of each of them. Now, as you would have saw from the intro of this video, we're actually putting it all to the test. But before we carry on, quickly make sure you subscribe to me and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any future uploads, and it really does help the channel grow. And if you do like this video, make sure you like it as well. That's really appreciated as well. Now, I did also say in the last video that a few items hadn't arrived on time. They have now arrived, so I'm going to quickly run through them. First of which was this little bait crusher. Now this one came in at £5.40, so it really didn't cost very much at all. Build quality seems really decent. The spikes there are actually pretty sharp, and it fits together nice and snug. I can't see there being any issues with this actually being used. It's nice and comfortable in the hand. It's smaller than the one I've currently got, which is a branded one, but it looks like it will do exactly the same job as what I need it to. Next up was some braid. Now this is Carp soft hook link 8 braid camo brown, £15, and I got 20 meters of that. And now this came in at £3, 5 pence, and it's 20 meters of this. Now this is perfect for solid bag rigs. That's why I got it, because as you would have saw in the last video, I bought a sort of rapid loading PVA bag system. So that's going to be absolutely ideal, and means I can actually tie up some rigs with all the other bits of terminal tackle that I've got. Now the last item took forever to arrive. Now this is one of the downsides of using sites. Now I guess this is one of the issues of using sites like wish.com, is that delivery times can be pretty savage, and this was the case with the rod. I actually bought a backup rod to try and finish this video. I bought a rod off eBay for, I think it's £12 something, so a really cheap one, just to follow the theme of cheap. And as soon as that arrived, on the same day, this arrived. So this is the rod that I bought for this whole series, and that came in at £15.29, so actually ever so slightly more expensive than a rod I got on eBay. Now this is a 5-section rod. Now the finish is rather questionable with the detailing, some kind of leopard printy type thing. I don't know what it is, but either way it's interesting. But starting with the bottom, you've got a nice grippy handle, soft touch, sort of spongy kind of foam finish. The reel seat I did chuckle at a little bit, because I put the reel in and it holds it does everything it needs to, but it's completely backwards to what you'd normally expect on a rod. Normally the screw is at the rear of the rod or rear of the reel. This one is at the top. It doesn't really matter, I suppose. It's just the first time I've ever seen a reel seat that seems to be backwards. Moving up, you've got sort of a gold finish around the logo. This is a Sao Gaialang. I'm sorry if I'm absolutely butchering that pronunciation, but that's the brand. And this is, it says up here, 3 meters, 5 sections, rod weight 335 gram, closed length 65 centimeters. So to give you an idea, that's this, because this is one of the sections. And it's casting weight 3.75 pound. That's the first thing I noticed getting out the bag. It's actually quite a stiff rod. I was expecting it to be a lot stiffer than it is, but that doesn't matter. It means it's going to be up to the task. So there's one section, that's another section, that's another section, that's a section, and then you've got the very tip section. So it does everything you need it to. It's going to be interesting to see how this actually performs. One thing I will notice is at the very end, I mean, that shows how stiff it is. I'm holding it nearly at the tip, and that reel still isn't touching the bottom, but it's strong. Look at that. So put that over there. One thing I have noticed is that the top eye isn't actually secured to the blank of the rear seat. So it's got the 2 eyes, or the 2 sort of prongs that come down the very tip of the rod, and then there should be some whippings and some gloss that holds the rest of the eye to the rod. It doesn't have that, which means it's just flapping around, and I feel like that's going to break rather soon, especially under a carp, but we'll see. But that's a pretty easy fix, and for, what did I say, it was £15 something. I really don't think you can complain about quality like that. The main thing is, am I going to catch some carp on this setup? And that's exactly what today and subsequent sessions is going to be all about. Now, of course, on this trip I want to use as many different items as possible that I bought from Wish, just to see how they perform, but above that I want to catch some fish. And as it's blue sky, sunny, low 20 degrees, loads of the fish are on the surface, so I've got to fish for them where they are. But as I didn't buy a surface controller, I'm going to have to go for the next best thing. And I've side hooked an imitation mixer onto the medium sized hook from that little bundle of terminal tackle. There's a small, medium and a large, and I say this medium is probably the equivalent of a size 6. The only other thing I've done is I've just crushed in the barb, because I do think the barbs on these hooks are a little bit too savage for my liking. I could use them on here, they're not banned, I just think they're a little bit too aggressive, so I've crushed the barbs in. I'm just going to go for that. There's some fish showing behind me already, so I think if I present this in front of them, it won't take long to get a bite, and I'm really interested to see how this rod and reel performs. Wow. But the clutch works. Whoa. Tell, there's some good strength in this rod. Well, I don't want you to go around there. You have to give it a bit of power. Oh, it's a powerful fish. There's a lot of reserves in this rod. It's actually pretty strong. And the reel, honestly, is really good. This fish is putting up a hell of a scrap, and it's ball coping. The only thing is, this handle is so small, it doesn't even reach my, just about reach my elbow. It keeps slipping off my arm. He's in. Brilliant. Well, that didn't take very long at all. Using one of the hooks in the pack, I've crushed down the barb because I think the barbs are just a little bit too savage. And clearly the weight of the hooks is more than I'm used to, because that fake dog biscuit actually started to sink. But that wasn't the end of the world, because there was a few fish going around under my feet just below the surface. This one I saw only a few foot out, put it in front of it, drifted down, he turned, and I just watched the whole thing, suck it in, struck, and the rest was history. Here's the result. Put up a good old scrap. The rod did well, the reel did really, really well. Really impressed with that. And what a brilliant start to the day. I've got plenty of things to try and use and catch fish on, but with the weather like it is, 3-line mixer, does it get any better than that? Oh, happy days, what a start. Only 10 minutes in. Well, this bite was really hard to come by. They've been really finicky. Back in the original swim, they just cleared off. I stayed there far too long. But here it goes. Whoa. And so I was up and down this bank, and I've come to the shallow end, as you can tell, because there's nowhere this fish can go other than sideways. It's just took a load of line. I'm really finically taking, like the odd mixer here and there, and they were all just, I don't know, 5-6 inches below the surface. Whoa. This is a powerful rod and a powerful fish as well. Really is impressive, and that clutch, I've known more expensive reels than that have worse clutches. So the fact, I think this was £16 something, and it's as smooth as you like. God, this fish doesn't want to give up. Oh, I'm giving that a lot of stick. And this rod is really strong as well. But as I was saying, that really finically taking, just patrolling underneath the surface, taking the odd mixer. So the fact that I've got this slow sinking artificial one, I just flinging them fish in their patrol routes, like seeing where they're going, putting on their nose, and this one, again, I could see it straight in front of me, mouth it. And I know you can't really see a look of panic on a carp's face, but if ever there was one, it was just then. As soon as he took that hook, he knew he'd messed up. I gotta say, this rod is doing really, really well. It's pretty soft towards the tip, so it's taking all those lunges, but it's really powerful. My only gripe is the handle length. The actual butt of the handle is only probably a foot. God, he's off again. So it does mean that you struggle to put a bit of oomph into it, because you want the pivot point a bit higher on the reel. I suppose I could hold it there, but that'd look a bit weird. I mean, that does solve the issue, but you cannot complain. I mean, it's doing exactly what you want it to. Hopefully we get this one in. He feels all right. Don't know how big he was, but he's put up a good scrap. And I think it's fair to say, rod and reel, absolutely spot on. And there we go, fish number 2. Now I'd say this one's probably pushing the upper doubles mark, probably around the 18 mark, 19 potentially. It's quite wide, and it's quite long as well. I think that's where it got all his power from, because in that fight, it took some pretty impressive runs. But more impressively is that rod and reel combo. Honestly, for the price I paid, you'd expect it to be a load of rubbish. That clutch is smoother than a lot more expensive reels that I've come across in my time. And that rod, bit ropey. I mean, the top eye is falling off already, but that's an easy fix. And there's plenty of reserves in it. I mean, this fish fought really well. It bent the rod pretty well. but there's still plenty of reserves in that rod. So if you wanted to fish for bigger fish, maybe cast big distances, that really would do the job. So all in all, that rod and reel has impressed me. But that's surface fishing done, free line mixer with just a hook. I think it's time we tested a few other things that I bought from Wish. Well, I had to have one more, didn't I, off the top. Today's been great fun, and it's proved that the rod and reel are up to it, and the hook, I suppose. But next time, I promise, I'll use some of the other bits that I bought. But today has been great fun. Slip this one back, get home, and I'll see you next session.
And that one more, of course, became one more again. Now, if you don't yet follow me on social media, then you're missing out on so much more content like this. So please follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok for extra content. Doesn't have to be all of them, of course. Just one would be nice.
He's angry. So we've seen that the rod and reel can catch carp absolutely no problem, but today's test is going to be a little bit more tricky. I've come down to shearwater today. We're going to fish a bit more range, see what these rods are actually capable of casting wise, but of course we've got loads of other bits I bought that I didn't use last time that I'm going to be using today. So let's get fishing. For today's session, I've decided to come up to the shallow end of shearwater purely for the fact that it's still pretty warm, it's pretty muggy, and this place, they love a floater. And sure enough, there were stacks of fish already on the surface cruising around out in front of me, but I've already covered the surface fishing free line inside of things, and I need to catch some fish off the deck. So because it's only about 3 foot in depth in places here, I'm pretty sure that once I've got a better bait out there and fish with the solid bags, there's one cruising behind the camera right now, I'm pretty sure I'll be able to get at least one or two to dip the heads down and get a bite off the deck. So the first thing to do is to get some bait out with the Spod, or equivalent of. Now remember, this was 99p from Wish, and I commented on this saying it felt very plasticky. Quite a few of you called me out on that comment saying, what do you expect, it's made of plastic? Yes, you are right. What I meant was, it feels very cheapy. So, first thing to do, load this onto the rod, ping it out as far as we can to start with. I'm interested to see how this rod and reel performs, and then get a better bait out, and then we'll start fishing. I already see a slight design flaw because that looks like your loading capacity, but that would mean there's bait going all the way up to the opening latch or the mechanism. If you spin it to the other side, that's actually the compartment you can fit bait in, and that needs to be kept clear for the mechanism. So you actually only managed to fit a very small amount into this. So that's it loaded up at its capacity. Just to show you how much that is, in my hand, it's that. So a very small handful of bait will actually go in this and keep the mechanism clear, and let's see how it flies. But that is not a much bait, and already it's filling the wrong side and a bit of a faff. Normally you'd line the Spod up with a spigot, but there's 4 on this rod, so I'm just going to go with halfway. There's a very small handle, so let's see how we go. That seemed to take an age to go. I'd say it's probably about 60 yards. That's not bad. Did it open? Yes, it did. Cranking it in from that distance with a small reel. I can see the line capacity is depleted massively from that, but that's not what this reel is designed for. But it would get you out of a pinch if you need to spot some bait out with this rod and reel. Let's give it one more big whack. Well, I've loaded this one up to the mechanism. It did shut, so that means it's holding a bit more weight behind it. But this handle length is really hard to wear with. Try again. Okay. Not much further for a lot more effort. I've reached the capacity of this rod and reel because the rod is not built for range, and the reel certainly isn't, and the line is massively depleted on that reel. So let's bring it back to a distance that's going to be a bit more comfortable to fish, put a little bit of a better bait out there, and then we'll get fishing with the solid bags. Now we've got some bait out there, it's time to actually get fishing. Now if you remember, I bought this PVA bag loading kit, so it's time to fish with some solid bags. A method I absolutely love, so it's something I've done lots of before, and I must say there's a couple of items in here that aren't from wish.com just to complete the setup, and that is the lead and Gemini tidy stem arrangement. This is just how I always fish when I'm using solid bags, so that's not going to change, and I also didn't get any leads or anything from wish.com. Didn't even see any, to be fair, but the rest of it is pretty much all from wish.com. The braid was the Carp Soft Hook Link 8 braid camo brown, 15-pound breaking strain, 20 metres of it, and it's absolutely perfect for solid bags. It's really, really supple. And I tied this up last night. What I've done is then used some of the putty, which is one of the other purchases, ran that up and down the braid just to get in with all the fibres, makes it a bit more weighted, and a little bit of putty in the middle to pin it down when it's in the bag. That goes down to one of those little kickers that I bought that was a separate item, and then one of the hooks from the little tackle box pouch. Now this is actually the smallest one, which I'd say equivalent is about a size 8, and I have crushed the barb in because, as I said on the previous bit of this video, the barbs are pretty savage. Now bait wise, again, didn't get it from wish.com. I didn't see any on there, but also one of my sponsors is Mainline, so big thanks to them, and that's what I'm going to be using on this video. So I've got one of the little fluoro dumbbell wafters, and then in the bags it's going to be micro pellets, and of course all the bait I've put out already is just loads of cell, essential cell, small bits, a load of smart liquid to get them grubbing around. So yes, those bits weren't from Wish, but that's the only way I'm going to actually catch anything because I didn't buy any bait from Wish. Let's get this loaded up in the bag, and I'm actually going to crush up a load of the boilies as well using this little boilie crusher, which we can see how it gets on straight away. I've not used this yet, but I can't see why it wouldn't. It looks like it'll work exactly the same as other ones on the market. It's quite sharp on the hands, trying to use force, so it's not the most comfortable thing. But then again, I've never found these things to be comfortable to use. And there we go. Done exactly what it needs to. And it's nice and small, compact. So all of that's going to go in a solid bag with a bit of pellet, and we'll get it whizzed out. Now this is the bit I never found easy with other ones like this on the market, so let's give it a try. Big lick and stick. Right, that should now go over. I don't think that's going to pass through, so let's just pull it off. I mean, to be fair, it's not my neatest work, but I reckon we can tidy that up. I mean, it's not the prettiest, but it does everything it needs to. I've also managed to find the batteries that this bite alarm takes, and it was £5 for 2, so add that to the cost, and it works. So if I turn it on, you've got the volume knob, which that's on one of the tones, and I turn volume all the way up. The tone actually changes with the volume. So as it gets louder, the tone changes slightly, but then there is also a tone knob, so that's on its highest setting. Now if I turn it all the way to the other side, it's a bit lower and sounds a bit odd, but it works, and that's the main thing. And it actually seems pretty sensitive, so bite alarm is now working. And of course, the other bite alarm that you all want to see in action is this one. Now I have made a slight adjustment to this because it was so stupidly loud. I've just put a little bit of sort of felt, one of those pads that you put under furniture. I've stuffed one into the speaker hole and another bit over the tops, just so it's not quite as loud. It's still very loud, but it's just dulled it down ever so slightly, so it's a bit more acceptable in a fishing situation. Out goes the solid bag. Oh, that flies way better. There we go, we are fishing. Just turn the alarm on. There we go. Now that's the lowest. If I go all the way up to full volume, as you hear that echo around the lakes, let's go back down to just on. There we go, and a tone. I like the high pitch. Now, I haven't been able to get the other butt rest I bought onto here because it's too small for the butt of this rod. So what I've had to do is just put the first eye up against the alarm. That was your holding position, and the butt rest is literally just a rest. But the free spool function is on, so if the fish takes it, it can whiz away. And then as soon as I hit the fish, either click it down or wind, and we're into the fish. But that is us now fishing. Hopefully, we're not far off from the bite. Orders. Yeah, nice. Right, he's got another bream. Right, lead him to it. Well, after getting plagued by bream for ages, I've had a little hook bait change to a bottom bait rather than an in-your-face bright white wafter. And in the bag, I've got barely any micro pellets now. I just put in whole boilies, a few crumbs. So it's a really horrible looking bag. But rather than just loads of micro pellet, And the first cast with that has resulted in a carp. Now I must say, on the take, the clutch on the reel isn't as smooth as the main clutch. As you saw, it sort of went, stopped. It did its job, but it definitely wasn't as smooth as the main clutch when you're actually playing a fish, which you saw the other day. I was really impressed with. But happy days as a carp, and you know what this means. Once I get this in, the other alarm's going on it. And you would have also saw from the session the other day, the top eye was broken. It just wasn't fixed to the rod when it came. So I have fixed that. I used some of that braid, the 8 braid or 8 strand braid that I've got for the solid bag rigs, and fixed the eye by whipping it round. So I'm basically a Wish.com rod repairer as well now. And there we go. Definitely not a bream this time. And at £17 is a good size and a good test for the rod. Took a few good runs, and I got to say, the clutch on that reel is way smoother when you're actually in the fight than the free spool function, shall we say. But it's done the job once again. And if this is £17, then I'd say the fish I caught last week were equally as big, if not slightly more. So it's been a good average size for this video, and a good test for the rod and reel. Right, solid bag back out, and time to put that other little alarm on. You know what's going to happen? I'm going to get a bream on the first bite of this other thing. There he goes. Bob it on. Here we go. Click that on. Line goes through. Turn it on. Just check that works. It does indeed. We are all ready to go. And whilst we sit back and wait for the rod to go off again, hopefully with a carp this time because it's been plagued with the bream so far, I thought I'd give you a brief rundown of what I thought about the 99p Spod. Did it get bait out there? Yes. Was it accurate? Yes. Did it put much bait out per spawn? No. Did it open every time? No. Do I think it would last cast at 100 yards plus for a long session? No. So it's got its place. You could use it on smaller venues, putting out small amounts of bait, and you're not too fussed about how fast you can load it, because you can't load it very fast, because if you put any bait in that front compartment, which I tried a few times, the mechanism then starts playing up. It really wants to be clear of any bait. So yes, you can put a bit of bait in there, but as soon as it loads up onto that mechanism, you have to really smack the water for it to open, or it just won't open at all, which means you're left with that small compartment that I showed you, or maybe a little bit at the back, which is just a tiny handful of bait. So you're not getting much out there for the size of the spawn. So yes, it does its job. Yes, it stood up to the test today on this short session, but would I want to use this at greater range with greater baits out, greater volume to bait? No, I wouldn't. So yes, does a job. Value for money, I guess it's good. Will I use it again? No.
Drop back. Wait, that's heavy.
Another one. I have had enough of catching bream after bream after bream. So I've officially ended this session. I lost count of how many bream it was. Yes, all the things worked, but it would have been nice to test them on carp more than just the one that I've had today. Of course, I had a few the other day, so I know the rod and reel was up to it, but it would have been nice to catch a few more carp today and not just have those annoying little breamy bites all day.
Oh, it's in a bream.
Nevertheless, let's run through some of the things that we've got. So rod and reel, massive tick, 100% worth the value because it doesn't cost much. That is a perfect little travel rod. If you want to go carp fishing abroad and you want to put that in your hand luggage, that takes up next to no room and it's more than capable of catching carp. So way bigger than what I did. There's a lot of reserves in that. I wouldn't say there's any issue with using this, maybe boat work for 40 pounders or something like that. There's so much reserves in this rod. It really is impressive. Yes, the build quality wasn't perfect. I had to fix one of the eyes and the reel seat is on backwards in my opinion and the handle is really short, but there is a use for it. And the reel, again, really impressive. I think what I'm going to do with this is take this line off. I did put some pretty crappy old stuff on, and it's not been the best. It's been a lot of line twists. I don't think that's down to the reel. I think that's just the line itself. We're going to take that line off and put something lighter on, and maybe have that on a feeder rod setup, or maybe even a couple of those barbel fishing would be absolutely fine. So rod and reel is a massive tick. Moving through to this, the bite alarm and bank stick and hanger set and butt rest. Again, done exactly what it needs to. Didn't cost very much. I can't remember the exact price. I'm sure I'll flash it up on screen to remind everyone. But the battery costs £5 for 2, so that will last absolutely ages, I'm sure. And it's very simple, foolproof. Volume and tone, that's all it does. And it beeped when a rod went off. So all really good. The chain on the hanger, I'd say, is probably about 8 foot too long. That's just a personal preference. Everything there, again, did its job. Then we move on to this one. Bit of a laughing stock on how it actually looks and sounds, but if you needed something that just lets you know your rod's going off and you can't have a bite alarm on, or just something really discreet that clicks onto your rod, then yes, this does work. Of course, I've dulled this one down when making it quieter because it is ridiculously loud without covering that. But it worked, it's simple. Again, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's just, does it really fit into a carp fishing setting? Unless you've done that, this just isn't really going to be welcome at any kind of lake because it is just too loud. But bit of fun, and it did work. Then moving on to the rest of the stuff we've got, of course. Oh, get off. I've already gone through the Spod. You know my thoughts on that. Probably not something I get again. The rapid loader system, it worked as a loader system, but I did find that the PVA that it came with it was very fast melting and a bit stretchy. Some PVA bags can be a bit stretchy, so when trying to get that thing over the bag to seal them down, it was kind of a bit fiddly. But the PVA bag itself worked absolutely fine. Proofs in that I was catching loads of fish today, even though it was the wrong species. Then we move on to the little tackle box. Again, I think this is around the 12 quid mark. I've not really used much of the stuff in here other than the hooks. The hooks have worked absolutely fine on bream and carp. Swivels look absolutely fine. I was using the hook ring screws as well for the last rig. Again, nothing wrong with that. So even if you just used a few bits of this, the swivels alone probably saves you a lot of money. If you've got a kit like this and just using swivels, maybe some of the beads and the hook screws and stuff, then that's already making a big saving. And the pot, the little case is handy enough, I suppose. Then we go on to the grinder. I mean, I knew this was going to work when I looked at it, and it worked an absolute treat. It's a lovely size, fits really nicely in the hand. So ideal for just mulching up some boilies really quickly. Then we've got the boilie stops. Don't really need to go into that. They hold bait on the hair and do exactly what you need them to. The braid, really handy for solid bag work. So again, only £3 something I think this was, for 20 metres of braid. So if you like solid bag fishing or like a really supple braid, 100% recommend that. Then we've got the butt rest. We've already been through that. That works, does its job. Too small, sorry, for the rod that I got with me today, but would work on smaller rods. Putty. Again, did everything it needs to do for putty. It stuck to the braid and weighted down to an extent. Don't think it's the heaviest in the world, but still did its job. And lastly, I think we've got here are the baiting needle sets. Now, the closed latch needle is handy. The bait screw, I'm sure, will be handy. But the other one, which they class as a boilie needle, doesn't have a very discreet hook. It's just a straight bit of stainless steel and then a hook at the very top. So I can imagine that will get caught on things. But it's good quality, solid. So if you're someone that breaks these things quite often, for I think again it was about £3 something, I can't remember the exact price, it'd be flashing up. For 3 things like that are good quality, solid metal, I don't think you can complain. I think that's everything. Oh, and the kickers. Again, kickers did what they needed to, just made the hook turning potential a bit more aggressive and did what it needed to. I think I've said did what it needed to enough times there, but that's basically all you need to take from this. Is this it's cheap. All of that in was about £86, I think. Chucking the batteries, you're looking at about £90, and then bait, of course, on top of that. But if you're looking at a budget of £100, and not all of this stuff you're going to need, some of this I got just for the fun of it, you can get fishing on a budget, go to wherever you want, give it a try, and it's good fun. And at the end of the day, if you break something like this, it's not going to break the bank. You can replace it for 15 quid. So there really is something to be said for buying cheap and maybe having to buy twice, but not worried about it. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I've really enjoyed doing this wish series, and there will be more stuff like this to come because you guys seem to enjoy it and I've really enjoyed making it. But that is everything for now. Cheers for watching, and I'll see you again soon.
I have had enough of this.